Hi. Okay, what I want to talk about today is identity and awakening and the difference between stability and metastability. So I'm just going to preface by saying that the Torah, the blueprint for creation, talks about the fact that the world was created for the times that we're living through now and the destiny that they are leading us to. So you have to consider this process. If you want to look at it from the spiritual perspective, from a divine perspective, you have to consider that this is a process of awakening, a process of metamorphosis. If it is our destiny, if we're moving from history to destiny, which I am proposing that we are, and if we're at the final stages, I don't know how long the final stages will last or what has to happen in between. I mean, I basically have a sense of what has to happen, but I don't know what the path is exactly going to be, and I think it depends a lot on us. But we have to realize that we're not just making small changes or looking for a nicer, kinder world. This is a metamorphosis. What does that mean? Literally, that the nature of being a human being, the nature on life on Earth has to change radically. Why? It's all messed up. It was created all messed up on purpose. God created this world as a place of darkness and challenge, so that we human beings, meaning divine souls in very limited, temporary, vulnerable bodies, could, through the power of the divine free choice vested in us and through the Torah, on all kinds of levels, could transmute bit by bit that darkness into revealed light, revealed divine power. We are essentially divinity in very, very dense, thick costumes and in very personal, individual ways. This process has been going on for a long time. It's complex, it's challenging to say the least. It's sometimes horrific, sometimes it could be glorious. In this stage that we are in, which is this transition stage, it's like the final stages of the meltdown of the caterpillar and the constitution of the butterfly. Just think about those two entities for a minute. I know I've brought it up several times before, but I want you to bring it home. By the way, there's a concert that's about to start outside of my window, so it might get really loud. So bear with me. Anyway, if you think about the difference between a caterpillar and a butterfly, it's a pretty accurate metaphor for the difference between human being 1.0, which is the life, the human condition, the life that we've experienced as human beings in our many incarnations until now. I'm not sure how many, but there are incarnations, certainly for everybody. If you compare that to the caterpillar, the struggle, the earthboundness, the fact that we have to repeat these challenges and frustrations, that we're trauma-ridden, that we're fear-based, that we have no clue what's really going on, that we get distracted by just simply struggling to survive, with the destiny that is promised for which the world was created, which is glorious heaven on earth, meaning that you will have profound insights deeper and deeper every day of your everlasting life, that you will connect with divine consciousness, with the creator, not just as an entity that you kind of imagine, putting the world together and way above you, but as an intimate reality within your being, a love affair, an intimate partner. Likewise, your own soul. Likewise, every human being that you will encounter, we will see the richness and the infinite potential and the beauty in each person with eyes that we cannot imagine using now. There will be no, as I've said many times, as the Torah says, no war, no death, no suffering, no competition, no poverty, no jealousy, because we will be awakened to our true selves. And that is a huge, I would say the foundational, to use the Hebrew word ikar, the foundational part of all of this. Now, the Torah talks about redemption in all kinds of ways, and the Jewish people, and also actually other religions, have looked forward forever to this promised time, the Messianic era. We're in the Messianic era now. But the way that we picture it has been kind of fundamentalist. In other words, things are bad. The Redeemer, God will swoop down and, save us from that. Whoever merits to be saved, the people who aren't really, really good at that time will go, and the people who are really, really good will get saved. And do we really believe it? And can we really imagine? And what's going to be like? And, are the bad people going to get theirs and all that stuff? That is very, very basic. That's a very basic way to look at it. It's a kind of a primitive way. I'm not saying there's no truth to it, but what's really happening here, that's how the caterpillar would look at events. But if we want to look at events from the future self, which I think is imperative in Elul, As I say, we need here to enter into a new relationship with God in our own souls. That's the purpose of Elul, to rectify the past, to create the vessels that were not created in order to bring down a new future on Rosh Hashanah, and then unfolding throughout the next year. Every year, starting on Rosh Hashanah, is a new phase. It's a new reality. It's like we spiral up, and as we come to Rosh Hashanah, we come to Elul. We have to learn those lessons that we, kind of gather in the crop of all the lessons that we learned, all the things that we accomplished, all the things we failed to accomplish, things we did wrong. Work with them so that we can start the year from zero, from a divine zero, bringing down things on a whole new level. And then that next circle of the spiral, which will be the year 5782 on the Hebrew calendar, on the Torah calendar, that next year will have magnified miraculous potential. So human beings are experiencing awakening. We are experiencing that metamorphosis to a new entity. And part of that, unfortunately, I don't like to use that word because it implies that like it's a misfortune, but sadly for us, or challengingly for us, part of that process is that we have to see through, we have to experience the breakdown of the caterpillar way of being, the caterpillar way of perceiving, the caterpillar way of crawling, the caterpillar way of defending. That has to be broken down, because otherwise the human being 2.0, those parts of us that will direct that new us, that evolvement into a new entity, the one that is promised, that is necessary to bring in, to channel in, and to actively co-create this new era, this messianic era, redemption, geula. In order for that to happen, we have to be able to see way beyond the way human beings have seen before. We have to be able to experience our own inner divinity way beyond how ordinary human beings have been able to do that ever before. We have to be able to see each other's divinity way beyond what has been possible before. And likewise, we have to be able to connect to God in an intimate, personal, empowering, love affair way. I am to my beloved is to me, in a way that human beings have not been able to do before. Why? Because that is the future state that is coming in now. That's what it means, a birth process or a metamorphosis. It means there's a radical, you could say, quantum change in the way of being, the way of seeing, the way of perceiving, the way of connecting, the way of relating, and everything that comes out of that, everything that comes along with that. So it is not any great wonder that things are breaking down in front of our eyes, around us, all over the place. It's not a great wonder that we are looking at least some of us, I find myself for already many months, starting to doubt everything that I hear from any kind of media. No, I hold things as possibilities. I try to get information. I try to analyze the information. But I've decided a while back that I don't have to believe it. I don't have to believe anything. I don't have to believe this is dangerous, that's dangerous, you're dangerous, I'm dangerous. I don't have to be caught in that. Yes, sometimes I get triggered. But the more I see that shocks my brain, I mean, the process didn't just start for me last year. It's been going on for a while. But the more I see that I once thought was true, and then suddenly I'm face to face with, this is a lie. This is a vast, I can't even believe this, that, this is really going on. The more my brain and my comfort zone and my expectations are confronted, the more challenging it is, yes, the more triggering it is, but when you move with it instead of resisting it, the more expanding and opening it is. And as your perceptions expand and open, as your beliefs about the nature of reality, what's going to happen in life, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what's inevitable, what's impossible, the more that gets challenged. And believe me, I mean, I'm sure you agree with me that in the last year and a half, all of those ideas have been challenged in one way or another basically for all of us. The more you allow that to happen, the more you look deeper, the more open you are to deeper realms of perception. The more you're moving into your future form of human being 2.0, human being, butterfly, transformed. The more you are able to move into that next phase of your being, which is your destiny, as opposed to your history, the more you're going to be able to be a co-creative force for good and for the divine in the world. That's really important. That's what it's about. So I just want to talk really briefly. I can hear the music is about to start soon. I want to talk really briefly about about identity versus awakening, stability, chaos, and metastability. I might talk about this more in my next slide. We are a divine soul, which has various levels. The soul has various levels, an infinite or semi-infinite potential, co-creative potential, covered up and surrounded by an external kind of shell, a kind of a template, which is our identity, our personality. Your identity is made up of your memories, your thoughts, your beliefs, your DNA wiring, your past life experiences, your ancestral line experiences, the things you encounter in the world, the conclusions you come to, all that stuff. That forms the identity, and the identity is like a valve that through which our potential can either flow. Some of our potential can flow, and most of it is blocked out. Okay, there's a lot to say about this, but I just want to make the point. If the soul, if we are going through a cosmic awakening, which there's no doubt that we are, even if it feels dark, that's just because there's pressure holding down the awakening and there's internal resistance. But the soul is attempting to shine, and God is in that project with the soul. All of this is on that behalf. So if we're going through an awakening and our identity is saying, this can't happen, this is bad, I can't handle this, you're bad, it's your fault, it's the fault of the ones who will, it's the fault of the ones who won't. If that's where you're at, if you're in a state of fear, judgment, and constriction, the valve of your identity is getting constricted and more constricted. Less and less of your potential and perception, vision is going to be able to come through. And the more you are going to be part of the problem, a victim, helpless, part of the problem, rather than a co-creator, partner with God in the solution. So chaos threatens the identity. It threatens stability. The identity loves stability. It's terrified of instability. So chaos seems like a threat, but here's the secret. I'm going to try to carry this out so I can close the window. It's really loud. Okay. Anyway, so chaos threatens the identity, and that's a problem because the nature of the identity is that it resists change and it's only comfortable with what it knows. But chaos, all real true change and metamorphosis, requires a breaking down of the previous form, a previous government, a previous way of being, previous beliefs. And if that doesn't happen, then there's no room for something that's radically new. Just like if the caterpillar does not melt down, it can't reconstitute into its higher version, which is a butterfly. So the same thing here at many, many levels. So the chaos is a necessary part of a movement from one form to another. But the problem is that chaos is very, very uncomfortable. And when we are not able to flow with it, the window's closed, it's still that loud. We're not able to flow with it. So it can cause a lot of symptoms, emotional, social, physical, all kinds of things. So we want to learn how to flow with it. And that's where this idea comes in of stability versus metastability. Chaos threatens stability, right? We have chaos in the world and our stability is threatened. It's pretty simple, pretty obvious. But chaos is a prelude, a necessary prelude to what's called metastability. What is metastability? Metastability is where you're able to find new ground instead of in a solid, stuck place. That's the identity. Solid, stuck, don't change me. I'm this big, I'm not this big. I'm this big, I'm not this small. You're threatening me, get out of my face. So for the identity to reach a state of awakening, to allow for awakening, which is a flow of new divine power, insight that makes you a fluid, makes you an expansion in motion. There's no end to it. This is our true nature, to flow, infinite expansion, exploration. Anyway, so if your identity is to allow for that, it has to understand. You have to understand that chaos is part of the process of what? Not just breaking down the old and not just ushering in the new, but it's a process of changing you, the way that you deal with life and with motion, with events changing and moving, with the new coming in and the old shifting out, and flowing with that like a surfer who loves the waves. So what is the state that we're looking for in terms of our awakening, our experience of life from that perspective of ongoing awakening? To move from solid to fluid, that is called metastability. And that is the ability to be secure, resilient, connected, calm, peaceful, co-creative in the midst of a moving environment. Kind of like being in the ocean instead of being, anchored into the dry land. So metastability is the goal. A state of metastability is the goal. Interestingly, the Rebbe said during the portion of Pinchas in 1991, the Rebbe talked about how about the idea of that our destiny, at least as the Jewish people, is to all live in the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, and yet many people are still outside of the land of Israel currently. I'm not in the land of Israel, even though most of my things are. Anyway, so the Rebbe said something very interesting, and that is in Yiddish, Machda Eretz Yisrael, that wherever you are, you're not supposed to put your life on hold until you get to the future event, but rather wherever you are, you need to make that into a holy land, into a land that reveals God, that reveals the soul. And that is very connected with metastability. It's a foundation for it. So everything that happens in your life, you must be present. Let me say we. If we want to achieve metastability, if we want to become co-creators, if we want to stop having symptoms of fear and anxiety and even physical symptoms, we need to learn how to flow with everything in such a way that we reveal God in it, that we reveal purpose in it, that we can find our center in it, that we can find our power in it. And in fact, from it, even if we get temporarily triggered, to dig deeper and to be able to be more expanded, more empowered, more resilient, more fluid, more flowing, more divine every step of the way. And that is a state of metastability where instead of waiting until we get to a different stable point, or even worse, holding on to the past that is breaking apart, we start to flow. If you imagine yourself in the flow with events, flow with our growth, flow with God. If you imagine yourself in the ocean and a big wave is coming and you stand and try to resist it so it doesn't knock you over like I used to do, then you can relate to this because there are waves waves pouring in. And if we resist them, they keep knocking us over. And then we're helpless. Then we are we're subject to brainwashing. We are not fully alive. We cannot fully connect. We're in fear instead of love. But if we can learn how to jump with the waves, or even better yet, surf the waves. I'm not a surfer, but I do know now how to jump the waves. If we can let the waves pick us up and set us down, and we can get into the flow of it, stop holding on so tight, understand it's just the identity. Trying not to expand, trying not to see deeper, trying not to hear or allow in anything that contradicts its way of being, because the identity resists change with all its force, with all its passion. If we can learn to allow that gentle motion to flow with things instead of resisting them, the whole game begins to change. So that is the path of metastability, and that is the path of Machda Eretz Yisrael. Make the Holy Land where you are. Reveal God where you are. Understand that it's God orchestrating events for you. And understand that you're here on a mission. Ask yourself, what good could I do here and now? How can I, it starts with you. You're a microcosm of the world. As you change yourself, your hologram, things will change automatically. First of all, in your relationships, in the way that you behave, in the way that you receive information, in your ability to support and to understand other people, even if you disagree with them, rather than to see them as the enemy. This already is a holy, 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 holy change. But even more energetically and spiritually, you begin to change the direction of the energy. You begin to change things from resistance and fear of chaos to co-creative flow and reforming into higher and higher and higher and higher orders of perceiving and being, relating, co-creating. And I hope the words aren't too wishy-washy, but you know what? Or vague or fuzzy. I don't mean wishy-washy, really. I deal a lot in the world of energy inside my own being and prayer and spirituality and perceptions, and I am seeing that we can connect to people on all kinds of levels apart from the physical, and that we can make a difference for them, and that makes a difference for us. We can live in deeper dimensions. It's not that we are not in the physical world, but the deeper the dimensions we can connect to in our perception, in our belief system, in our prayers, and then in our actions, the more powerful we are in terms of bringing about this divine metamorphosis. And that is not a little thing. It is so important. Okay, I think the last thing I want to say now is, maybe I'm putting in too much in one live, which I tend to do. But I'll say this anyway and see where it lands. In 1991, according to the Vilna Gaon, great sage who lived hundreds of years ago, certainly also according to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and many others, 1991, Tafshin Nun Aleph and Beis were basically the beginning of the redemption process. 1991, now it's 2021. That's 30 years. And the Rebbe in 1991 said, I've done everything I can. Now I'm giving it over to you to do everything you can to bring Mashiach and Geula now in a manner of the infinite lights of the primordial world of Tohu, Oris of Tohu, in Kelim of Tikkun, in the vessels of the, of the human world. In other words, to bring down an infinite light into the finite realm. And we are wandering around, distracted. I'm not saying nobody did anything. A lot of people did a lot of things. But in terms of creating a divine awakening, in terms of moving from caterpillar to butterfly, did it happen? It didn't happen. Not yet. And this 30 years of limbo, I am really getting fed up with it. How about you? You getting fed up with it? Feel free to share your answer in the chat. And in general, please like, share, comment if you would like this kind of message to spread. Something you can do to be part of the solution. But 30 years of going on with life as usual, or struggling with our struggles, or getting cynical and depressed and despairing, resisting change. I mean, I'm not going to judge anyone because it's really normal, and I've spent a lot of time like that too. But it is not going to get us where we need to go. If this limbo state is like the caterpillar in the cocoon, and the goal is to get that metamorphosis over and emerge as a butterfly, and until that happens, the world is going to keep getting into more chaos, because chaos is necessary. But if you can't get out of being stuck, it's necessary to move things from one state of being to another. Chaos and meltdown is necessary. You can have a linear step-by-step change, but not on this level. We need to change from human being 1.0 to human being 2.0, chaos is necessary. How much chaos? It didn't have to be this much. I mean, after the fact, I guess it did, but we're not meant to look after the fact except to get ourselves into a state of co-creativity before the fact. So let's say it had to be the way it had to be for 30 years of limbo, just to get us fed up enough and maybe shaken up enough to get us to wake up enough. But it doesn't seem to me that we're going to get out of here unless we change. Why? Because the whole purpose of all of this is for us to change. And I don't mean just to beat our breasts and think that we're so bad for a minute because we're scared, or that someone else is so bad. There are levels of this, some more primitive than others. But it's really about changing that relationship with God and ourselves, and by definition, by extension, other people, to one that is divine, to one that is real. And that involves changing your perceptions. That involves questioning everything you see and hear. That involves learning to uproot your fear triggers from the very roots, so that you can't be controlled by the media and by government agendas and by other people's, sleepiness, let's say. Because then you're not part of the problem, you're part of the solution. Then you're not a helpless victim, you're a co-creator, feeding newness, feeding redemptive energy, feeding miraculous energy, and deeper, more divine perceptions and powers into the system, into the whole. We are so connected now. That's one thing that's happened hugely over the last 30 years, both on the technological end. I mean, just think back to what was available 30 years ago. I remember when there was a group of emissaries of the Lubavitcher Rebbe who wanted to create a conference call for Mashiach. A conference call cost them $900 to set up the conference call. That was back then, 30 years ago, dollars, and a lot of work, many days, and they had, I don't remember how many people, for 100 people. Now it takes a second to set up a conference call for 1,000 people, and it's free. That's just one, and it's video. That's just one little example, but also on the internal level. Many of us can feel and see energy. We can sense someone else at a distance. We can pray or create space with a good intention, and things change for the other person. There's so many divine powers that used to be reserved only to great tzaddikim, to holy, righteous sages, that are now available for human beings. But you got to be flowing with the program. You have to be part of the solution. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for today. I wish everybody, this is the 4th day of Elul. I wish you a tremendous, tremendous blessing in this work. Let's bring it down to simplicity for a minute. If there's something that you can change your destiny now, and in doing so, that's what this month is all about. And in doing so, you'll change destiny for many others. So what you want to look at, how this past year has been for you. Where have you been judgmental? Where have you been lazy? Where have you been afraid? Where have you been stuck? Where have you been, opinionated? Where have you been divisive? And it's not that those things don't come with the territory, they certainly do, but they are only here to trigger a deeper awareness and transformed action and expanded state of being so that we can be part of the solution. We're moving into that divine awakening, divine level of being. We need to understand it and flow with it. So where has that not been the case? What do you have to do to make up for that? Either make amends for things that had happened or didn't, or that shouldn't have happened, or that didn't happen, that should have happened, so to speak. Not saying from the realm of judgment, but from the realm of power. How do you change that platform so that you're ready to receive a higher or even higher level of divine light, divine power, and a new potential when Rosh Hashanah comes in? So everything is, all of the work with the past is to prepare for a new future. And it's quantum. Every year before Rosh Hashanah, the whole month of Elul is allowing you to separate from the past by making up, by resetting, by reestablishing, by opening, expanding, all these things that we're talking about, especially creating a new love relationship with God. Seeing yourself as a player. And that allows for a quantum leap. The light of Rosh Hashanah comes from the future, not from the past. But how does it come from the future? In accordance with the vessels that you have established for the past. If you believe certain things are possible and others aren't, you're not going to be able to receive a lot of newness. If you have old habits that you're stuck with and you're not willing to break them, and even worse, you're blaming others for them and seeing yourself as a victim, how much newness are you going to be able to incorporate and through you shine into the world? Not so much. So all the work you're doing now is in order to make yourself a much, 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 much bigger vessel to receive a much, 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 much quantum more powerful light that can change everything in your body, your mind, your heart, your relationships, your finances, your spirituality, your relationship with God, and through you, your personal world, and the world at large. And we're connected on many different levels. So that's what I want to leave you with. Let's see, what's the fairy dust for today? Let's look at beliefs. Let's look at beliefs and reactivity. What do you believe about what's happening now that's causing you to react in ways that perpetuate the past instead of make a platform for a new future? Are you blaming others for what's happening, and who are those others? And I'm not saying that there aren't agents of destruction that are embedded in our establishments and pulling strings, whether they're spiritual, physical, political, or otherwise. We're not talking about those, but we're talking about your fellow human being. If this is being done by God in order to bring us from stability, stuckness, to metastability. So all the players we're supposed to, all the big forces are supposed to be here. The Torah talks about it, in order to be part of they're going to be taken down with redemption. But what as human beings can we do to relate directly to God and to one another and to our deeper potential in such a way that we are not subject to those agendas, but rather we become co-creators? That's what we're talking about. So you want to look at your beliefs. Your fairy dust is to look at your beliefs, your behaviors, your habits, your judgments, whether of you, of the situation, of other people. Really do an analysis, really do an inventory. Like you own a hardware store, not like you're going to have to hide because if you see yourself, you're bad and you have to throw yourself out. No, like you own a hardware store and you're going to the buckets of screws, which ones do I need to replenish? Which ones, are old and need to be thrown out? What new ones do I need to have? What about the nails? What about the hammers? Like, let's upgrade this place. If we were starting from zero, what would we do? And we are starting from zero. This is our preparation to start from zero and bring in a new world. I, for one, do not want more of the same. I'm getting really tired of it. And my personal work, I have to tell you, is very much in metastability, Machta Eretz Yisrael, because I am in a state of a lot of instability as a nomad for the last five months. And it's obviously part of my process, and I have to find that total sense of stability in the movement and be able to be more on, because I tend when things feel like chaotic, I tend to withdraw, kind of cocoon in myself. That's not, I don't want to do that. That doesn't serve me. That doesn't serve anybody. Doesn't serve the world. So, and in order to be able to shift that, I am looking for the deep-rooted fear triggers, because fear is the opposite of love, and we are commanded to enter. We are invited, I want to say, to enter into a passionate love relationship with God and ourselves, our world, our lives, and others. And that is a relationship that comes from the deep soul. In order for that to happen, we have to unwind our reactivity to trauma that we all have. And that will be the topic, perhaps, of my next live. Anyway, take care. Blessings to you. Happy Elul, day 4. And let's do this together. Let's do this together. 30 years is too long to be in limbo. And it's not going to get less intense unless we make it so. Okay, lots of love. Talk to you soon.